recorded nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
You held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Are you ready? Are you ready for the subpoena?
Are you ready?
Good morning. This is L. Nathan here. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you know our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Thank you for our producer, James Braun, for sending that soundbite in. We're here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome, Norm.
Well, good morning, Mr. Hare.
He's still got $10 and $20 bills falling out of his pocket because, he's been out here collecting money in the world. That Uber stuff is something, huh? And, of course, we're here with our citizen of the 21st century, Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Calling y'all, 716-878-5104. Also, stay tuned, 10 a.m. for Talia Talks. Talia Talks should be on with us. But right now, Living for the People with L. Nathan here.
We love it. We hope Talia will chime in at the beginning of the next hour. Excuse me. And so I had really written today's program to talk about what's going on in this country in terms of the context between how conservative versus how progressive the country has become. But before I hit that, we have to deal with the news of the day. We had been thinking that this was going to happen some time from now, a week or two or some months from now, that the former president of the United States, the twice impeached president of the United States, the previously once indicted president of the United States, the run out of office at the end of his first term president of the United States. I don't know why you all are being so ugly with these labels or whatnot. Right. But it got ugly when the Justice Department said, come here, son. We've had enough of you, okay? And they indicted him.
Yes, sir.
Now, we haven't seen the terms of the indictment yet. The last time when he was indicted in New York State by Attorney General Bragg, we did find out what was in the indictment. There were like 35 charges, charges in the indictment in New York State. But this is different. There's only 7, from what we understand, there are only 7 charges, but they're serious charges. These are charges that get into the area of violating the Espionage Act of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And Norm and I were talking about this over the past couple of weeks. Norm was like, what do they mean by sedition? What are they talking about, right? Espionage, are you saying that the president of the country was spying for other people? That's not what we're saying. What we are saying, not what we're saying, we're just telling you what the Justice Department is saying, is that when you take records that belong to the public and you hide the records, that's illegal. You can't do that. The Presidential Records Act, which was created after the fiasco with Richard Nixon and the nonsense that went on around him, him subsidizing people breaking and entering into people's offices and apartment buildings. After all of that stuff went on, they passed something called the Presidential Records Act. The Presidential Records Act is interesting. I heard a lawyer that was formerly representing Donald Trump on Ari Melber's program on MSNBC last night, and he tried to assert that the only things that count in the Presidential Records Act are those things that deal with military secrets and that are specifically not only are they marked classified, but it's only the original record. So if you have a record that talks about a deal that was struck between the United States and, say, Switzerland to allow certain people to walk around and, spy on people from a base in Switzerland. If it's not the original record, he said you could run around here and make photocopies of the original memo and pass them all around the world, anybody you want to pass them around to, because they're photocopies. They're not the original record. That's patently absurd. That's not what the Presidential Record Act says. It says that all records that are generated by the President of the United States or that are given to the President of the United States are presidential records, and they belong to the people. They are cared for or curated in the custody of the National Archives and Records Administration. That's the entity that receives those presidential records. The assertion that a president has 2 years after the end of their term to be able to review the records and determine which things they want to keep, in their own archives, that is true that you have that 2-year look, but it doesn't mean that you get to keep the records in your garage or on your desk, in your desk drawer and so on. You can't keep the records for 2 years and review them as you get around to it and then give the records back. You give the records to the National Archives and Records Administration. They put the records in a particular place where you can go to review the records. Then you have to go through their protocol. They have these secure rooms, that, there's no possibility of microphones or, cameras or whatever that could record what you're doing. That's what the system is. And the system exists for a good reason. It's to protect not only the secrets of the United States, but to protect the people that the United States is working with in order to provide intelligence and security for the United States. You don't want those people to feel that their business has been put in the street because somebody could come back and do something to them that doesn't like them.
Yeah.
So you just can't do that. And you can't trust everybody to figure out what is sensitive and what's not sensitive, what might provoke a reaction from somebody and what might not. You just have a set system. You do things by the set system. You don't have to worry about, what the outcomes will be because they'll all be contained within that set system. But Donald Trump said, no, these are my records. I'm not making that up. Those are his words. He said, these are my records.
I'm the president.
I'm the president. In fact, what did he say? Well, he said, if I just think about something, I'm flexing. I'm thinking about going to Mar-a-Lago and I got like 4,600 records, in my head. Well, they're declassified, because I say they're declassified. I don't even have to tell you that they're declassified. How in the world can you run a security system on information if stuff could be classified and you wouldn't know that they were classified? You could be making mistakes with those declassified documents because you would not have known that they were classified.
Right.
But that's because they weren't declassified, because he's just lying. Right?
Well, Mr. Hare, one thing about Trump is he's about business and he's about self-interest. So having these particular records, in his mindset, or even having them for a longer period of time, say he's speaking to somebody over in China, just like they're trying to, buy certain areas in the United States as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He could be giving away financial secrets or any kind of secrets just by spouting off just in conversation. So,
and he could do it inadvertently,
that's what I meant.
There was a meeting when he was in the early part of his administration, his first year of administration, where the foreign minister of Russia was meeting with him. For whatever reason, Donald Trump decided that the American person who's supposed to be the recorder in a meeting that involves the president of the United States, they generally have a recorder in that meeting. But Trump didn't want the American recorder in the meeting. They allowed the Russian recorder to be the recorder for the meeting. And during the course of the meeting, Donald Trump actually revealed how one or two Israeli operatives were involved in providing the information flow that enabled, I think it was the assassination of Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
Or somebody. If it wasn't him, it was somebody else, some other person.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that Trump intended to do it. It's that he was selling wolf tickets. You know, he's bragging, puffing and whatnot.
He's a big boy.
In the course of puffing, he said something that would have allowed somebody who knew what was going on to say, I didn't know that. That guy was involved in this. And there are consequences, you know, once that information, you know, got out. That's why they have procedures and systems to prevent that kind of breach, you know, from occurring.
Mr. Hare, just a quick question. Mr. Trump, keeping these records for all of this time, and knowing he was supposed to, what could the reason be for him wanting to keep the records? I mean, it's not like he's continuously reviewing them. Why is he trying to hide something that they may find?
We know he wasn't reviewing them because that required reading.
Right.
And he does not read. So that's not possible. This man didn't even know that the Virgin Islands were a part of the United States.
Yes, sir.
So this was not like some well-studied person and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But he could be going through the records and use information in the records to get leverage over people that he was trying to set up business deals with.
Okay.
You know, he could empower other people and say, I'll give you this information that will give you some control over some particular thing in return for you giving me a license to put a casino up, you know, in your city. He had an operation going on during the first year of his presidency trying to build a Trump hotel casino in Moscow while he was president of the United States. And his kids and his kids-in-law, you know, are busy out there, you know, cutting deals. They were making $60, $80, $100 million a year from the contacts and relationships that they were leveraging that Donald Trump had, that his kids were using to be able to open up clothing lines. His son, Jared Kushner, now his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, actually got a deal with Saudi Arabia where they put $2 billion of Saudi Arabian assets into an investment company that was started by Jared Kushner, which allowed him, just think about it, you got $2 billion in essentially your bank account that you can now loan out to folks around the world if you're only making, you know, 5% on that two. Right. That's like $200 million, you know, in profit that you're making, you know, that year. I mean, it's incredible. But the grifting that was going on.
But Mr. Hare, come on, everybody knew that the reason he became president is because he wants to have power and increase his finances and, you know, his positioning. So we all, I think everybody in the country knew that.
Right, but remember, you don't elect yourself. So we know that he became president because he wanted to be the king, number one pimp that the universe had ever seen. Exactly. He said, you know, I know your cousin was a pimp, but he only had 3 girls. And your cousin was a pimp, but he only had 6 girls.
Right.
But I had like the entire country of the United States. I had 330 million girls, or whatever that means.
That's Trump.
Right? That was Donald Trump.
Right.
But he didn't elect himself. He can't put the votes together to elect himself. How did he get elected? Who elected him? Who thought that something like this venomous creature, Donald Trump, was worthy to be the president of the United States? Who thought that?
Well, he positioned himself. He knew, okay, I know these people want this, so I'll just put myself in a position where I'll tell them, I'll promise, I'll give you this. And that really gets into what I wanted to transition to in our discussion today, because the term conservative, you know, Donald Trump gets to wrap himself in the cloak of he's a conservative. You know, Kevin McCarthy claims he's a conservative. Mike Pence claims he's a conservative. Chris Christie, I'm a conservative. Ron DeSantis, I'm a conservative. But when the word conservative is used,
what is the context in which you understand that word? What does that mean?
I would say holding back on spending money more than anything else. You conserve things. You're holding back.
Okay, so conserving means to not spend any more. To try to keep your spending level constant.
Yeah.
Right, and so on. Right. So you don't want to open up any more debt. You just want you want to deal with the debt that you already have.
Okay. Yes.
But conservative means other stuff. What would you say, Will?
Yeah, it means that, but I think it's a certain lifestyle too. It's a certain positioning, conservative.
You mean like boys that have boys parts are considered to be boys, and girls that have girls parts are perceived to be girls?
That might be.
Does that sound conservative to you?
That might be conservative also. I would think so. Yeah.
Right? And so when somebody says that a person with boys parts who's got makeup on and he's got a dress on and a slip and, a brassiere, that's doesn't seem conservative to you, right? Come on, Will, tell the truth now.
Well, the thing is that I know there's people who are born certain ways, so
they're born with a brassiere.
Well, no, they're born with parts that they probably boys maybe don't have, or girls maybe don't have, or have.
Well, in reality, I guess see, we get trapped in our language, and my daughter, who's a more progressive person than I am, let's just admit that, right? She says, "Daddy, your problem is you only know how to use two words. You know how to use man and woman, male and female, right? Boy and girl.
Right.
But there are more words than that, right? You don't have to be trapped by those words. You could have like gender identification.
Right.
And a person can be in a whole spectrum of whatever gender, that you perceive yourself to be. You can pick wherever you see yourself being in along that spectrum.
Mr. Hare, I have to ask this. I was
Norm's gonna argue with me.
No, not at all. Not at all. And this is really a question just for your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the National Desk, and now, like I say, I'll say I'm gender centric. I'm gonna put myself there. I have was a niece. My niece basically changed gender, and now my niece is a young man.
Okay.
So I'm very understanding of how things go. But I gotta ask this, Mr. Hare, as I watch the National Desk, they have so many different sports and athletic programs and different things that have happened, where there have been fields where women dominated their fields in track, basketball, certain things.
Right.
And then they have a male that has changed himself into female and now has come and taken over that particular event.
Because remember, that male still trains. I mean, he can say he feels like he's a woman, but he's still training on weights. He's still training on, running, track. He's still training on, leaping and high jumping, and all that stuff. So his muscles are going to become the kinds of muscles that males have.
Right.
Yes, don't get me wrong. Women have profoundly, disciplined muscles as well.
Right.
But a man has more potential, than a woman has because of the nature of his testosterone nature.
Mm-hmm. So with that, and the fairness of how you depict who that person is, the question is, should that particular male that's now a female be allowed to compete with females?
And I'm going to bail out on you because I have no science. I have zero science on
it's
this.
Just
I hear what you're saying.
It just kind of messed me up.
There was a situation that happened many years ago, where a fellow had decided that he was a woman and not a man, but he's a swimmer, right? So he's competing in women's sports, the freestyle and the breaststroke.
I think they highlighted this guy,
right?
Yeah,
and he's a big dude. He's like almost as tall as me. He's like almost 6 feet tall.
Yeah,
And he wasn't like bigger than me, but he was close to me in height. He was like a couple inches from me in height.
Yes, sir.
And he's in the pool and he's stroking away and whatnot, right? And he's just smashing these girls that are in the pool with him. He just swimming right by them. And the issue became, well, how does he get to compete in a women's sport?
Right.
Yeah.
When he's got the musculature of a man.
Now here's the rub right here. These particular athletes, you've got women that have been competing for years and doing great and should have been champions in what they were doing. Now these males are passing. Now the Olympics come up.
Right.
Now what are we going to do in this situation? Now the women that had been number one, they go back to maybe 2 or 3. And they may not even make the Olympics due to that.
I'm going to say that you have to call together the people that are the biological, anatomical scientists, the people that are the philosophical, scientists. You have to call them together and you have to really visit with each other and come up with a decision. I'm basically saying that you can't bring that to Nate Hare because I don't know enough about it. I've not bothered to learn enough about it for me to be in a position to give you something other than a Heckle and Jekyll, kind of response. And I don't want to treat something that's so important.
Yes, it is
in a cavalier way.
I understand.
So I'm not going to do that.
Gracefully bowing out, sir.
Right, but I do hear what you're saying. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a discussion going on, a very animated discussion going on a couple of days ago, where a mother was saying, how do you want me to feel if my daughter is a softball player and it's going to the locker room, change your clothes time, and you got a person, I'm not going to try to characterize their gender, but you have a person who says that, I feel more like her than I feel like him, so I want to be in her locker room. And how do I feel about this biologically male person in the locker room with my biologically female daughter? How do I feel about that? In fact, the woman who was saying this, well, it was a mother. What's her name? Haley, the South Carolina former governor, Nikki Haley. She was the one who was giving this example. Now, I don't know if this actually happened to her, but she was giving this as an example where you've got a female child and you could have a person who is biologically male but identifies as a female in the same locker room with the biologically and gender identified female child. It wasn't just how did the child feel about it, but she said, how do I feel about it? And she wasn't real happy with how she felt about that. She didn't feel like that was right. Sharing bathrooms, and so on. She didn't feel like that was right. So this gets into a lot of science in terms of people's real reality of gender identification, but it gets into a values and philosophical, framework of rights, what I mean, that have not been specified in the law. Because when the laws were created, the Constitution was created, nobody even considered the idea that there was such a thing as a man who didn't think he was a man or a woman who didn't think, or if they thought about it, they didn't put it in the Constitution. So, this requires more than like just on the spot reactive kind of thought. This requires a lot more depth, than
if you. I'm sorry to stop, but this is just a synopsis. If you have a gender specific changing room, you got a male, you got a female. Now you've got in the middle gender specific. How many people would go to that gender specific changing room anyway?
Well, the opposite. It would be the opposite. The gender specific room would be the one for the male and for the female. For the non-gender specific or whatever that's supposed to mean.
Exactly.
They got new words now. They got something called cis men and cis women. I really don't know what that means. CIS-man and CIS-woman. They got all kind of stuff, right? I don't trouble myself with it because it not only does it not mean anything to me, it doesn't have any effect on me. It doesn't create any kind of challenge to my reality or to my daughter's reality.
I know right now, like when I go to a restaurant or whatever, I'll use the men's room if it's available. If the women's room is available, I'll use it, especially if it's just one.
You use the women's room?
I do. If I got to pee,
boy.
I do.
Now we know what was been happening, Norm. Now we know.
No,
We've been trying to solve this crime for a long time. Okay, he didn't mean this. For those of y'all that heard this on the radio, he didn't mean that.
Whatever is available, that's what I use.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not going to sign on to that one either. So we're going to let you visit with Willie on that. The 21st century citizen who just goes whatever bathroom that's near him.
That's available.
You all work that out with him. I'm not in that conversation at all. But my point is that, in terms of what I was talking about today, is that conservative is perceived to be the same thing or akin to what is normal. Conservative is considered is perceived to be what is the same as right. So if you're conservative, you're normal. If you're conservative, you're right. Because when you say something goes left, you're always thinking that this is something that went the wrong way. It went left, right? That's the context in which our language, has evolved. So that's the kind of thought process that goes on inside your head. And so what this does, it creates a psychology in which those things that are considered to be progressive are considered to be to the left. Those things are considered to be changes from what is normal, changes to what is generally accepted. And there's an abrasion that seems to be involved with that. Like there's like a conflict there. You're trying to change us. You're trying to turn us into something different, and so on. But what you may be trying to turn somebody into is what somebody should already have been. You were already a citizen of the United States.
Right.
You already had all of the rights of citizenship of an American citizen when they made you a citizen in 1865. Period. Right? Now, prior to 1865, you weren't a citizen. So you being changed from being a non-citizen to being an actual citizen is a change, but does that make you left-wing? In this country, it was always, the civil rights movement was considered to be a left-wing movement. To this day, it's considered still to be a part of a left-wing movement. How can being a citizen of your own country be left-wing? But that's the context in which the politics in this country has evolved, that the conservative Republicans have taken custodian of the words and the context. And so we have people that are making decisions that are in opposition to what should be on the basis of, well, that's left-wing thinking, and we're conservatives, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to the other side of the break. I know we took a little long time on this, but this stuff that's going on with this indictment of our former president, I think that takes precedence over the original discussion that we were going to have. So if you all don't go away, we want to see you on the side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We'll see you all in just a couple of minutes.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm. And we're here with Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century, who does the live streaming of the program. He's our engineer. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People. And once again, stay tuned for Italia Talks at 10 a.m.
Absolutely. And call in. We like to hear your thoughts about what we're talking about. As I indicated before, my daughter freed me from part of the trapping in my own mind because I only had a couple words for things. I knew about male and female and women and men, you know, and boys and girls.
Same here, Mr. Hare.
You know what I mean? And I'm that's all I knew, right?
Right.
So when people started talking about somebody is, you know, a cisgender this or a cisgender that, I didn't even know what they were talking about. I hear people talking about we are a them, they, and they're a him, her. I just didn't comprehend what any of that meant. But what was more importantly for me, I didn't know what to do with that information, so I did nothing with it. I just threw it to one side of my mind and left it there because I didn't know what to do with with that context. I think it's important because there seems to be many more people for whom this is an issue than I had understood in my life were facing these issues. So there needs to be more thought about it than the thought that I've given to this thing.
Right. Well, like you, my daughters also, they said, no, Daddy, you can't think like that. Because I'm like, I don't know who's male or female. No, you just got to treat them as a person equally.
I just call you by your name. You know, whatever name you call yourself, that's the name that I call you. And I'm done with it. You know, I don't want to go through all of these gymnastics, you know, inside my head and whatnot. But I talk about this because we're now seeing an emergence of populism connected with conservatism. And this portends something different. When I talk about populism, populists are the people who prioritize the interest of those people that make up the working class and the lower income classes of your country. You know, what are the things that affect them? Whereas the elites, you know, the ones that tend to be the Republicans, tend to represent the interests of the elites, you know, the people that own the businesses, the people that are the stockholders, the people that are the proprietors, and so on. And their interests tend to be less regulation, lower taxes, allowing them to have as much control over, you know, the realities that affect the production of their goods and the sales of their goods and services as possible. But now we're seeing an emergence of populists, people that see themselves as conservatives, who are taking on some progressive issues. There are actually conservatives, I know you probably didn't believe this, but there are actually conservatives who experienced the drying up of the Lake Mead and the Colorado River who said, maybe global warming really is happening.
Yeah.
You would think you wouldn't have to bust somebody upside the head with a club to get them to understand that. But those people that think that global warming is happening now and think we ought to be doing something about it in Colorado and in California are still the same people that are worried about, well, you got these minority people that are becoming the majority people in this country, and I'm not sure I'm with that. I'm not with replacing who the people are that rule this country with this almost entirely white male population with another population that is female and brown and black and yellow and red, and so on. I'm not sure I'm with that.
So when when certain self-interests start to intermingle and start to come together, then they start to see exactly what they need to do, and it should be that way.
Well, no, don't. Hold on. I take the first part of what you said. They're starting to see those progressive issues.
Right.
But they're not willing to let go of the part that they still want to be in control.
I understand.
They still want to be Charles in charge.
Exactly. but when they start seeing, Lake Mead dry up, and there's certain things that they know they have to do.
They want to replace the water in Lake Mead and still be in control. See, they
ain't gonna be in control forever.
They don't want the core issue is they don't want to see a day come when they're not going to be the ones.
They don't want to give it up.
Charles in charge. They got to be Charles in charge.
Yeah.
And so, but what happens then is people who are, say, more Democrat oriented, more progressive oriented, they see some people on the conservative side who say, man, I'm starting to see what you all are talking about. Lake Mead is really drying up. We don't get as much water out of Colorado River as we used to get. I'm concerned about that. Now I'm concerned about global warming. I'm willing to get in line on the global warming issue.
Right.
But I'm still in the supremacy line, okay? I'm still there.
Right.
Right? But those people that think like that, Democrats will get drawn to those people who are now taking on the more populist kinds of issues. Democrats get drawn to them and say, well, see, we've got common ground. Well, that may be common ground for you Democrats, but it's not common ground for me as an African. There's no common ground when I'm not a citizen of my own country.
That's right.
There's no common ground when you get to feed me a Flint-laced water because you found it was $5 million cheaper to give me water from from the Flint River than to give me water from Lake Huron.
Yes, sir.
There's no possibility that you can make me think that that's okay.
That's right.
That it's okay for you to suppress my votes, where 68,000 people lost the right to vote who had a right to vote, had their rights taken away from them in Georgia, and then you did it, and a year later you're just saying, oh, and by the way, there's Talia. Hi, Talia. All right, we'll see you in a little bit. Outstanding. There's no way in the world you're going to make me sign on to you, just because you've developed a certain left-wing view about one thing. Maybe you're okay with doing something about climate change. You might even be okay with putting the tax rates back where they used to be so that you don't have criminals. Well, I shouldn't say criminals. That would be a wrong thing to say. You don't have people like Kevin McCarthy and the people that have control over the House of Representatives, Mike Lee and these folks. You don't have them saying that instead of putting the tax rates back up where they used to be, we just want you to wipe out, 50% of the discretionary non-defense part of the budget and leave all these people with no heat benefits, to leave them with no Medicaid insurance, to leave them with no affordable housing, to leave them with no primary health care clinics, and so on. See, that's what's really going on here. So when you're not the one who's being affected, it's not your position of power and authority in the country that's being affected. You can be real, liberal. You can be real loose about how you feel about other people and whatnot. I can't feel like that because the things you're doing are directly affecting me. There has to be principles that we govern ourselves by. So that was the core of what I was trying to get to. I don't know if you remember a guy named Huey Long. He used to be the governor of Louisiana. You remember George Wallace, right? Governor of Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Definitely.
So George Wallace was a populist. If you ask George Wallace what his feelings were about, monopoly capitalists having control over business in Alabama, he would be opposed to that. But at the same time, he was for white supremacy in the state of Alabama. And he signed off on getting money, to be promoted in his office by those monopolistic business owners in Alabama, because he was more concerned about preserving white supremacy than he was about the possibility of monopolies controlling the economy in Alabama and putting people in situations where they were paying higher prices and having fewer and less quality services in the state of Alabama. It's that sort of stuff, that we have. You have to have principles. That's what principles are for. Principles are independent of your feelings.
Yeah.
Principles are what you drive yourself by. These are the ideals that you live by, right? And so, when I hear all of this Thomas Jefferson stuff about, how they felt about, people having, equal rights, all men are created equal, et cetera, endowed with by body and created with certain inalienable rights. When they said that, they had 300 slaves. When they were saying that, when they were saying those words, they had 300 slaves. Some of those slaves weren't even African people. Some of those slaves were Native American people. Wow. Some had indentured servants. They had British people and Dutch people, that were virtually enslaved by these people that were making these so-called prophetic, profound statements and so on, because they were not governed by principle. The principle is all men are created equal.
Right.
But if you don't actually govern yourself by the principle, you can say the words and do the exact opposite of what the words say. That's what's been going on in this country right now. It's not conservative in my mind for you to continue to support businesses driving down the integrity and quality of regulation to ensure that people have safety and that our environment is not being corrupted. That's not conservative. That's people that are just being predatory, and opportunists. You have to challenge that, right? When I think about what are the kinds of issues that, let me see if I can feel where I pull those things out. I get to talking so fast and whatnot, I run past what I was trying to talk about. But when we talk about the sort of progressive issues, we talk about gun control. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't think that you should have surface-to-air missiles in your yard.
No, sir.
I just don't think so.
Not if you're not in the military.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Even if you are in the military, shouldn't be in your yard.
Not in the yard. I'm just saying.
They should be in the military yard, not in your yard, right?
Exactly.
Climate change, right? I mean, how much more do we have to see? Now, of course, you live in Buffalo, on the shoreline of of Lake Erie. You may not be too mad about climate control because it means that our summers are going to get longer and our winters are going to get shorter in this area. But that's only going to happen for just a little while, right? A day is going to come when this whole thing is going to flip and we're going to be back in the ice age and whatnot, right? You know what I mean? So you can't sacrifice, the future for the short-term gains today. That's what governing yourself by principle would allow you to be able to do. You got renewable energy development. The current president, Joe Biden, worked with the Democrats in the Congress and some Republicans and got monies put together to help build the infrastructure for the economy that has to exist in the future. In the future, there has to be an economy that is not dependent on renewable energy, or in fossil fuel based energy.
Right.
Because the fossil fuels are not inexhaustible. Sooner or later, you're going to run out of those fossil fuels, just like water is not inexhaustible. That's why Lake Mead is running out of water, because the area is getting drier. Because it's getting drier, there's less rainfall, less runoff from melting snow into Lake Mead. So there's less water in Lake Mead. No matter what you do, you're not going to be able to put more water back into Lake Mead. So you have to be able to run your farms and run your residential communities with less water. Well, that requires some science. You got to figure out a way to get that done. You can't just walk around with your mouth poked out and say, no, the Native Americans got to live with less water on the reservations because we need that water for us. Mm-hmm. It's the Native Americans' land. If anybody got a prior say on the water, it's them, not you. It's that sort of stuff. Subsidized child care. How is it that we don't comprehend that you can't have child care costing $10,000 or $12,000 per child and make that work when the people who have the most kids are the lower income people in the country. The people that have the fewest kids are the upper income people in the country. The people that can afford child care out of pocket are the people that need less child care per household. And the people that have the less resources to be able to pay for child care are the people that need it the most.
Right.
That's why you need affordable child care that's subsidized collectively, by the society. But that's not what's being done. Student loans. It's you as a society, right? These predatory lobbyists and so on that sold people on the idea that you're never going to be able to have an economic future unless you got a college degree. Now a college degree is like a high school diploma. You need a graduate degree now. And I'm sure 20 years from now, they're going to be saying you need a postgraduate degree, in order for you to be able to have an economic future, when in fact, only about 10% of the jobs in the country require any of those degrees in the first place. Right? Most of the jobs are jobs you can learn how to do on the job, within 2 or 3 weeks, if not shorter.
Skilled trades are the way to go. Yeah.
I mean, how smart do you have to be, and how long does it take you to learn how to run a crane?
And my father used to tell me that 40 years ago about getting into the skilled trades. And that right there is exactly where we are. Skilled trades are everything.
And I get it. It takes longer to become a good plumber than it takes to become a laborer on a construction site. But you don't have to go to school for 7 years to become a plumber, right? I mean, you can learn those skills in a year, become experienced enough in it within 3 or 4 years, and be a master plumber, 3 or 4 or 5 years after you get your certification, and so on, right? So we have to rethink what we've allowed ourselves to get bullied into. The colleges pimped us, and they said, well, I know everybody got to have a college degree, so we're going to double the amount of money we're going to charge in tuition, for college degrees. Then we just kept on increasing, and then you kept giving more and more aid to people from the public trough.
Right.
Now you've gotten mad because you realize how much money you've been giving up per year. You don't want to give it the money anymore. So you want to put that back on the person who has these student loans that you forced that person to have to take out in the first place.
Yeah.
That's not the right way to solve the problem.
And didn't they just recently knock down these student loans? They took them away and said that they didn't have to pay for a period of time. Now they're trying to make all of these students pay these loans as of today.
As we said at the time, in 2020, May of 2020, when they're talking about these moratoriums on rent.
Yeah.
You heard me say on the air, what happens when the moratorium is over if you don't have any money saved for these people to pay their rent when the moratorium is over? You're paying $1,000, whatever it is, a month for rent. 4 months go by, you owe $4,000. The moratorium didn't make the $4,000 go away. It just meant you didn't have to pay it right now. Well, you let that, not 4 months, you let that 4 months turn into 20 months. Now you owe $20,000.
Yeah.
If you couldn't pay $4,000, there's no way in the world you're going to pay $20,000. So all these people end up with these humongous rent notes that are due, can't pay them. They take the moratorium off, and so now these people are all in housing court, right? And they're getting thrown out of their homes. Same thing happens with student loans. You tell these people, oh, we're going to help you out. There's a pandemic going on. It's COVID-19. We know you can't go out of the house with COVID-19. So don't pay your student loan. I don't know what the connection was between the one and the other. If you could afford to pay the student loan before you got sick, you could afford to pay the student loan after you got sick. But that was not the hustle here. They were hustling because they were trying to politically keep different segments of the population in the camp of the folks that were trying to do the preventive health stuff to control this spread of this virus. But months go by. Now it turns into 20 months you haven't paid your student loan. Now you owe, $500 a month. I mean, you owe $10,000 on your student loan.
All right.
Well, if you couldn't pay the $500 a month, I know good and well you can't pay the $10,000 that you owe right now. Right. So how does this get fixed? You created the problem. Now you're trying to make the problem even more exacerbated for the people that have the student loans. It's that sort of stuff, right? The reality is you borrowed from the future to pay for an experience that you were incurring today. That meant at some point you need to take money that you're making today and pay the future back. Because if you don't pay the future back, you just got a balloon that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger that's going to explode at some point, which is how you end up with a $31.4 trillion debt. That's how you end up with $1.5 trillion in deficit spending every year. You've got to make decisions. You have to lower expenses on the one hand, that's true, but you have to increase revenues by putting back the revenues that you took away when you stopped collecting taxes the way you had been collecting taxes in 1990. If you put the tax rate back to where they were in 1990, 1992, within 20 years, you'd wipe out your debt. You'd wipe out your deficits, right? You would solve the problem, but they're not trying to solve the problem. They're just trying to figure out ways to manipulate us so that certain people can end up being in power so they can continue to meet the interests of the people who have power in this country.
Right.
This is just insane, the way that we're behaving right now. And so, I don't get seduced, I guess is part of my point. You're going to see some purportedly conservative people who are going to say, well, I'm for, subsidized housing. As long as you don't put the housing near my house. You can have subsidized housing. I'm down. Here's $6. Here's $6. Go build a house, but don't put it anywhere near me. I'm telling you, I'm in Hamburg, right, trying to find a space to put a detention facility, for the Department of Youth Services back in the early 90s. And this is over like McKinley Drive, where there's like this McKinley Mall. And then there's like, a creek or something over there. There's all this, land with nothing on it, throughway goes through there and so on. I tried to put a detention facility over there. Oh no, we can't. Well, who am I bothering? There's nobody over here but a couple of deer. There's not even any goats over here, and so on, right? But that's the behavior that goes on, in this country, so we can't get seduced because somebody says something polite and correct about an issue that we care about if they're not being correct about the core issue, which is we have to be governed by principles that say that all citizens are citizens. All citizens have citizen rights. All citizens have the ability to participate in the political process. All citizens have to be treated fairly when they come before any administration of services in the governance of the society. Those things have to be things that are bedrock that you can count on all the time. And that's not what's going on. You need to fire anybody who will not resist or who will not fight for creating a foundation for renewable energy as opposed to fossil fuel energy, because your common sense tells you that fossil fuels cannot be the way out of the wilderness.
Definitely.
Okay. So I know we only got about 5 minutes. Go ahead, Norm.
Mr. Hare, I'll make this really quick. Mr. Hare, I live on the west side, and
I know you fired us. That's okay. We understand. We understand.
I am looking at, there's a lot of things going on the west side, downtown Buffalo area. Now, housing, different things are being built, talking about dwellings for lower income families and this and that. It seems to me that these households, these big apartment buildings and different things are being built. And I believe that through gentrification, they're not going to be, right now, there are a lot of people of color moving into these different places, upper echelon, nice places. And over the years, I think through gentrification, they're not going to be able to be there very long because they won't be able to afford these places.
Yep. I think we have a caller hang on. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right. We got a caller.
Let me get that call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there? Hello, caller. Are you there?
Yeah, I hear.
Hello, caller. I can hear you're on the phone, but I think you may have gotten in.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead, caller.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Hi, Kath. How you doing? Kathy, can you hear me?
Wow.
I can hear you.
You can hear now?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Kath.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Good morning.
Hi, Kath. How you
I
doing?
want to say I'm with Willie H. Because when you got to go, especially in a stadium. And then also, I don't know if you're aware, but Ithaca, New York, is the first city in the United States to transition, or they're going to ban new construction of natural gas for any kind of building. So I'm with you, Mr. Harris.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. That's just exactly correct. Why are we doing this? You don't need to build facilities with a fossil fuel-based heat. You don't have to do that. You can build facilities cheaper, with renewable energy. So why are you building them with a fossil-based energy in the first place? Because the people that own the fossil-based equipment, the stoves and refrigerators and so on, they want you to keep buying that stuff because it meets their interests, but it doesn't meet the interests of the people for the future. This is just common sense that we've got to begin to organize ourselves around. I wanted to talk a little bit about something. I only got about 3 minutes. This is an article that appeared in the Reuters press. David Morgan wrote this article about the conservative revolt that paralyzes the United States House for now 2 days in a row. What you have is Kevin McCarthy's Republican caucus, the most rabid, conservatives in that caucus are saying, we're going to punish you, because you did this deal for the debt crisis. Instead of lowering expenses, by $700 billion a year and wiping out the discretionary part of the budget and putting everybody in the street, instead of doing that, you signed a deal with the Joe Biden and, tried to do something that was more reasonable, that met the needs of the people in this country. We didn't want that. And since you did that, we're going to punish you. We're not going to allow any legislation to move in the House of Representatives unless you give in to our demands to let us have things our way. What did I tell you was going to happen as a result of this, right? When they did this debt crisis, that the Republicans were going to use another chokehold, which would be the appropriations bills, to prevent government from going forward. They're going to choke government again. They're going to keep doing this over and over and over again. The problem is you keep electing these people. You need to stop electing these people. Listen, we got to run. I want to make sure we give Talia, as much time as possible. She does a great job, on her program. We look forward to talking to you all on Monday. Please be safe. Get through the weekend. It looks like the smog from the fires is clearing up. So let's make ourselves as safe as we possibly be. Look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We'll see you all then.
Love me always, only ready. Can't turn away if you stay.